In this guide, without IGA, enterprises face four compounding problems that each look manageable in isolation but become catastrophic together. IGA sits between the authoritative source, typically the HR system, and every downstream application your enterprise runs. IGA communicates with downstream systems primarily through SCIM2, the System for Cross-Domain Identity Management Protocol defined in RFC 7644. And four shifts are defining the next generation of IGA. Identity Expert, powering you to be an expert in identity. Here's a number that should concern every security team. The average enterprise has over 40% of its active accounts belonging to employees who have already changed roles or left the company entirely. That access was never revoked. It just kept accumulating silently, one job change at a time. Auditors call this access drift. Regulators call it a SOX finding. Attackers call it an opportunity. Today we're covering IGA, Identity Governance and Administration, the control plane that answers the questions every compliance team dreads. Who has access to what, why do they have it, and is it still appropriate? IGA is not just provisioning accounts. It is the continuous process of ensuring that access across your entire enterprise reflects current business reality and producing the evidence to prove it. Think about what happens when someone joins a company. HR processes the paperwork. It creates the accounts. Facilities issues a badge, 3 separate teams, 3 separate actions, all triggered by the same event. Now think about what happens when that person moves to a different department. Ideally, HR updates the record, it changes the access, facilities updates the badge permissions. In practice, it gets notified 2 weeks later. The old access stays. The new access gets added on top. Fast forward 2 years, this person has accumulated access from 3 previous roles, none of which has been revoked. Now imagine they leave. HR marks them terminated. IT disables the Active Directory account, but the Salesforce license, the GitHub write access, the AWS IAM keys, and the financial reporting tool are all still active. IGA is the system that makes all 3 departments move in lockstep automatically on every HR event. When someone joins, IGA provisions the right accounts across every system based on their role. When they move, IGA adds what they need and removes what they no longer should have. When they leave, IGA deprovisions everything, everywhere, within minutes, not weeks. Without IGA, enterprises face 4 compounding problems that each look manageable in isolation but become catastrophic together. First is access sprawl. Every time someone changes roles, new access is added but old access is rarely removed. Rights accumulate over years. Users end up with entitlements from 3 previous jobs sitting silently in production systems. Second is manual provisioning. Without automation, every access request becomes an IT ticket. Approval chains can take days or weeks. When business moves fast, people find workarounds, shared accounts, standing admin access, local credentials that bypass the identity system entirely. Third is certification theater. Most enterprises run annual or quarterly access reviews where managers receive a spreadsheet of 500 permissions and approve everything in bulk. Nobody actually reads them. The governance process exists on paper but provides no real assurance. Auditors increasingly see through this. Fourth is orphaned accounts. When the deprovisioning process depends on a manual handoff between HR and IT, gaps are inevitable. A terminated employee's accounts can remain active for days, weeks, or in documented breach cases, years. Each of these 4 problems independently creates audit risk. Together, they create the conditions for a serious breach or a very expensive audit finding. IGA sits between the authoritative source, typically the HR system, and every downstream application your enterprise runs. When an HR event fires, the IGA platform receives it and orchestrates the response across all connected systems. The identity warehouse is the core data store, a continuously synchronized view of every identity, every entitlement, and every role assignment across the enterprise. Above that sits the role model. Business roles map to IT roles, which map to individual entitlements in target systems. When a new finance analyst joins, the IGA platform assigns the finance analyst business role, which automatically resolves to the correct ERP ledger access, the reporting dashboard, and the shared mailbox, no ticket required. The connector framework handles the actual provisioning. SCIM2 connectors talk to SaaS applications. AD connectors sync to Active Directory. Custom connectors handle legacy ERPs. The governance layer runs continuously alongside this. Access certification campaigns schedule reviews, notify managers, collect decisions, and automatically revoke access that fails review. The SOD engine evaluates every role assignment against a conflict matrix, preventing a single user from holding both the ability to create a vendor and approve payment to that vendor. Everything writes to an immutable audit log. When regulators ask for evidence that access was reviewed and appropriate, IGA produces it automatically. IGA communicates with downstream systems primarily through SCIM2, the System for Cross-Domain Identity Management Protocol defined in RFC 7644. When a new hire event triggers provisioning, the IGA platform sends a SCIM post to the target application's user's endpoint. The request carries the core user schema with the username, name, and email fields, plus the enterprise extension for the employee number, department, and manager reference. The application responds with 201 created and assigns an internal identifier. When a user moves to a new department or gains a role assignment, the IGA platform sends a SCIM patch. The operations array specifies op-add, path roles, and the value containing the new role identifier. This atomic operation updates just the changed entitlement without touching unrelated attributes. When an employee is terminated, the IGA platform issues a SCIM delete or a patch with active set to false, depending on whether the target application supports hard deletes. The delete fires immediately when HR marks the record as terminated, not at the end of a batch window. Modern IGA platforms also expose REST APIs for the governance layer. Access certification decisions are posted back to the IGA engine as structured JSON. Campaign ID, reviewer ID, and an array of per-entitlement decisions, each with the identity, the entitlement, the decision of certify or revoke, a required justification, and a timestamp. That justification field is what turns a rubber stamp review into an auditable record. IGA addresses 4 major threat categories that are unique to identity governance at enterprise scale. The first is privilege creep. Over time, users accumulate entitlements that were granted for legitimate short-term reasons but were never removed. A user who filled in for a colleague during their leave still has that colleague's system access months later. The mitigation is periodic certification campaigns combined with role-based access controls that enforce a known good baseline. Any entitlement not explicitly justified in a review gets revoked. The second is orphaned accounts. When the termination workflow breaks, a silent failure in the HR feed, a missed SCIM call, a deprovisioning job that ran into an API timeout, the former employee's account remains active. The mitigation is automated deprovisioning triggered directly from the HR system, with SCIM delete sent within minutes of the termination event, plus reconciliation jobs that compare HR status against every target system and alert on accounts that are active when they should not be. The third is SOD violations. One person holds both the ability to create a vendor record and approve payment to that vendor, a classic financial fraud enabler. IGA enforces a conflict matrix that prevents these toxic role combinations from being assigned in the first place and detects them during certification when they arise through out-of-band grants. The fourth threat is certification rubber stamping. Reviewers approve all access blindly because the review interface asks binary yes or no questions with no context. The mitigation is risk-scored reviews that show the reviewer each entitlement sensitivity, how long since last use, and peer group comparison, making it obvious when an approval requires genuine scrutiny. 4 shifts are defining the next generation of IGA. The first is AI-driven access recommendations. Machine learning models analyze peer groups, usage patterns, and historical certification decisions to recommend least privilege role assignments automatically. Instead of a manager guessing what a new finance analyst needs, the IGA platform suggests a role set based on what every other finance analyst in the same department actually uses, reducing both overprovisioning and the time to productivity. The second is continuous access certification. Today, most enterprises run quarterly or annual certification campaigns. The emerging model is event-triggered recertification. When someone changes roles, their access is immediately reevaluated against the new role's expected entitlement set. Unusual access that deviates from the peer baseline triggers an instant micro-review, not a quarterly batch. The third is IGA and SCIM convergence. Cloud infrastructure entitlement management, governing permissions in AWS IAM, Azure RBAC, and GCP IAM, is merging with IGA so that cloud entitlements are governed alongside SaaS and on-premises systems in the same certification campaigns. Human and machine identity governance are unifying into a single control plane. The fourth is SCIM2 universal adoption. Draft extensions for device models, workload identities, and fine-grained entitlements are reducing reliance on vendor-specific connectors and making IGA integrations portable across platforms. The direction is clear. IGA is moving from a compliance tool to a real-time identity intelligence layer that enforces least privilege continuously rather than periodically. Next on Identity Expert, Joiner Mover Lever Identity Lifecycle Management. Subscribe so you don't miss it. All primary sources cited in today's guide are listed on screen. You'll find direct links to the RFCs and specifications in the video description below. If this breakdown helped you understand the topic better, please subscribe to Identity Expert. We publish a new protocol deep dive every week. Thanks for watching. If there's a specific identity standard, authentication flow, or security protocol you'd like us to cover next, drop it in the comments below. We build our content based on what the community asks for. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an episode.